So today I have something that is sort of controversial, or if not controversial, it probably on the surface comes off as maybe a little bit negative or bleak. And I certainly don't mean it as such. But for people who don't know who I am, I was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer on August 11th of 2022. So I'm about a week shy as of right this minute of my 3-year mark. So I've gotten some insight on cancer in that time frame and before. And I've also, obviously, cancer and all things cancer are very central to my life for the last couple of years. So anyway, I don't believe for a second that we will ever see a cure for cancer. I have been declared cancer-free twice in the last 3 years, at least twice, probably more than that. And now my oncology team is acknowledging that that was never the case and will never be the case, because once cancer hits stage 4, it's with you for life. So I want to share a couple of insights I've received over the last several years, going back way before my original cancer diagnosis. About 10 years ago, I was in a small talk conversation with a gentleman who was here in the Indianapolis area, where Butler University is. He was in town to interview to try to get into Butler University's doctoral pharmaceutical program. So he was already a pharmacist with an advanced degree in the subject. And during this mostly small talk conversation, I asked him, do you ever think they'll find cures for cancer, AIDS, diabetes? I was diabetic at the time, but I never dreamed at that moment that I would actually become a cancer patient. And his answer was, if they wanted to, they would have already done so. He said it's bad business for pharma to do cures, because cure a patient, lose a customer. He said, so the money, all of the R&D money that big pharma has, will go into, and has always gone into, treatments and not cures. And I fed that back to him, and I said, so in other words, the business model for pharma is keep them alive, but keep them sick. And he responded, he said, well, that sounds horrible, but he said, that's pretty spot on. Now, when I've shared that story, I get a lot of people who tell me how sick it makes them to hear this. And I can't even be mad at it, because the thing that I don't think people realize when they go, my God, that's big greedy pharmaceuticals and all this kind of crap, and get all kinds of pissed off about that. What I think most people fail to realize is these pharmaceutical companies are all publicly traded, meaning by SEC rule, they have to operate in their shareholders' best interest, not their customers' best interest, which in this case, their customers are patients. I've never heard of any type of carve-out where pharmaceutical companies can break that rule, but that's a hard and fast rule that they have to live by. And most of the people bitching about it don't even realize that they own stock in these pharmaceutical companies in their pension plans or other places that they're not even aware of. So I just urge people not to be mad at that, but realize this is a reality. Then, I'm not going to name names here at all in this video, but I have a couple of very long-standing friends with people who are, call it ivory tower C-suite positions on the business side of various hospital groups. And I have, over the last several months, as I've gotten to the point where I have to make some maybe difficult decisions about my treatment going forward, I said, geez, it feels like there's a spectrum where on one end of the spectrum, I am a patient of the hospital. And on the other end of the spectrum, it feels like I'm a revenue generating asset for the hospital. And I don't know where I am on the continuum, but in various ways, I've had two gentlemen who are very much in the know that have said, like one I think said, oh, you have no idea. You just pretty much nailed how the hospital system works. And it's probably much uglier than you even realize, and certainly worse that way than anybody in the hospital would be comfortable acknowledging. And again, it's just a reality of what we're facing. And another of these friends said, you know, you got to understand something about hospitals. They are very large, usually very large, brick and mortar operations with massive overhead just because of their physical assets. But they also have payrolls that are insanely high. So they have massive pressure on themselves to hit a revenue goal regularly. And if you think that that pressure doesn't make its way down to your doctor and your medical team, and if you think that that doesn't in some way influence their recommendations about any treatments, you're naive. That's the word I got from business insiders in the medical world. And again, I say all of this stuff to say I'm not angry. Look, I owe my life. The fact I'm walking down the street here talking right now is a testament to the fact that these same pharmaceutical industry, this pharmaceutical industry and hospital industry that I am seemingly bad-mouthing, I owe my life to on multiple occasions, going back almost 25 years. I would be dead if it wasn't for all of these people. So I'm not saying bad things, but I think in the interest of being positive, which I've tried to be for the last many years of my life, particularly since my cancer diagnosis, when you are trying to be positive, if you're not also acknowledging the ugly, inconvenient reality that part of that we don't want to face, that's where, in my opinion, toxic positivity comes in. Anyway, I just think it's worth putting out there that these are the realities of the situation, and it's not, I'm not bad-mouthing anybody, but people, I think, if you are dealing with cancer or may deal with cancer some point in the future, or people who you care about do, I think there's nothing to be gained if you're not going to acknowledge the ugly realities of the situation and proceed accordingly with your own health care. Now, a plot twist to all this that I think is fascinating. I've got a friend who also I'll not name, and I'm hoping he's watching this video, but I met him about 13 years ago. He's in his mid-30s. He's actually a financial advisor and truly one of the most brilliant people I've ever met in my life. Well, we were meeting this past week after, 12 or 13 years of only being connected on Facebook and barely knowing one another. And he shared with me that his wife was diagnosed with the same thing I've got about 2.5 years ago. He's developed this hatred of cancer. But because he's far more brilliant than I am, which really isn't saying much, he is on a mission to cure cancer. He disagrees with everything I've just said in this video up to now, because we did talk about it. And he said he's laid out this incredible vision he has to build his financial practice to a point where he can sell it off, and he has access to venture capital. He has the brain power and access to other people with the brain power. But as he laid this thing out, I'm not so sure that he doesn't have one of the most brilliant genius plans I've ever heard to do just exactly what I'm saying can't be done. My skepticism kicks in, and he does acknowledge, he says, look, to carry this out, this will probably, even if I am wildly successful, very good chance none of this will bear fruit, even in his lifetime, which I think he's only like his mid-30s at the most right now. But he is the type of dude that could actually pull it off. Now, my skepticism kicks in because, he would have to do this in such a secretive way because as soon as Big Pharma knew about this, they've got too much at stake. I mean, they're not going to let him be successful if they have a clue what he's doing. And I don't think you can keep something like that under wraps for very long if you're having some success at finding a cure for cancer. I mean, I don't even think, I'm enough of a tinfoil hat guy that I don't even think it would be above people putting a hit out on somebody for this, because like I said, there is so much at stake from a business point of view here. But it's interesting because when I've shared the 3 insightful stories that I just shared here in this video with people over the last few years, I get a lot of pushback. But it's funny, I've started sharing that with my oncology team and shared bits and pieces of it over the last couple of years. And they don't like to hear it when I say, hey, I don't think we'll ever find a cure for cancer, and here's why. And they will almost never agree with me, and they'll push back mildly, but it's really interesting when I throw that stuff out there, how their entire demeanor changes to just their facial discomfort, and their tone goes from that of authoritative, like most doctors have when they're talking to you, to, this very weird mentality. So they know that what I'm spitting is facts. They don't want to admit it. They'll push back and say, I just don't buy that. But the fact is, it's almost entirely likely true, what I'm saying. And look, this isn't a political thing. Like I said, a lot of people who watch this, but I do want to find out, I hope you share your thoughts, and if you have alternate points of view, especially if they're based on some kind of medical industry insight, please, by all means, share them. Tell me where I'm wrong. But I'm not slamming on our healthcare system. My God, I owe my life to it. It's just, and nothing is ever going to be perfect no matter what we do. I'm just saying there's a reality of the situation here. And for people with what we'll call dread diseases like cancer, AIDS, diabetes, you name it, all those things like that, you mean too much to the medical system from a business perspective that you're just not going to see very much R&D money going into cancer cures. All kinds of stuff will go into treatments, but it'll be expensive treatments, because on a similar note, I'll share this with you, that I get a lot of people, have gotten a lot of people in the last 3 years, who will send me messages or various methods of reaching out saying, hey, have you tried fenbendazole? Have you tried ivermectin? And I see a lot of literature out there, and I do think it's a very dangerous thing to go to Google or YouTube and look for medical advice, because there's so much crap out there. But there's a lot of stuff that seems very credible, saying, hey, there's reason to believe that particularly fenben and ivermectin may have some promise to them. The problem comes in here. Nobody's going to fund a study to see if there's much merit to that, because you can buy both off of Amazon for like $20 or $30 for a month's supply. You can't make money on it, even if it does work. So there won't be money put into studies. It's just the business reality of these types of things. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that and put it out there. And I'm hoping a few people will watch this and you'll share your thoughts on this. But again, I will never contribute any of my money personally to cancer research, which is to say I would contribute a lot to helping people with cancer, but not research. And I just don't think you should either, because I won't go so far as to say it's a huge black hole. But if we rate our lock on cure, the word cure, it's a fool's errand, because it won't be successful. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts.